back to Braveheart Talks and a brand new series called My Relationship with Myself. This is a brand new and very practical series about the thoughts, habits, functions, and disciplines that we all have. Because God is concerned with you, all of you, the whole of you, your spirit, your soul, and your physical body. If we really believe what scripture tells us, and that is that God has plans and purpose for our lives, then we need to look after the body to the best of our ability in order to be able to run with longevity and pursue the vision that God has for our lives. Because if we have no functioning body, then we have no purpose to pursue. So the relationship that you have with yourself really is the most important relationship you will ever have. It also sets the tone for every other relationship that you will have. So becoming the healthiest version of you is important for living your life to the full. So let's talk and explore some thoughts about the relationship I have with myself. In this first episode, I want to talk to you about your thoughts. What do you think about yourself? You know, working on a healthy relationship with yourself really is one of the most important works that you can do. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about learning how to be with yourself. You know, we all know how to be generous and kind with our words to other people. And yet with that same mouth and those same thoughts, we have nothing good to say to ourselves about ourselves. Instead, our heads are full of thoughts and criticisms that we would never use on anyone else. We speak to ourselves in a way that we would never speak to another person. And it's important to know that you can't have a great relationship with anyone else until you first learn to have a good relationship with yourself. One of the reasons that we don't have that healthy relationship with ourselves is because more often than not, we talk at ourselves rather than with ourselves. What do I mean by that? Well, you're more likely to tell yourself you're stupid for making the decision that you made, rather than asking yourself, why did I make that decision in the first place? Or you'll stand in front of a mirror and internally tell yourself what you dislike. My hair color is wrong, my thighs are too big, my waist is too wide, and the list goes on and on. But not many of us will stand in front of the mirror and tell themselves what they do like about themselves. What you like about yourself is not vanity. It's necessary for becoming the healthiest version of you. Because your voice is the biggest influencer in your life. So if you want to be a person of influence or walk through life with confidence, then you have to change the way you speak to yourself, because your inner voice becomes the environment that you live in. If you don't encourage yourself, pay compliments to yourself, be kind, and edify yourself intentionally, then you will automatically default into a self-talk of criticism. Now, we all have flaws and areas of our physical bodies or personalities that we desire to change. And the desire to change is good and often possible, because let's be honest, there's always room for improvement. There's always a better version of ourselves to pursue. But remember, God made you, you. So when you criticize or despise the attributes of yourself, you can fall short in the eyes of God because you're criticizing his handiwork. So it's important that you learn to love who you are. I mean, the core of who you are, the heart of who you are, because there is something in you that God deemed necessary, a gift to the earth for such a time as this, that he is uniquely placed in you. But I understand life happens, things get tarnished and broken along the way, and that includes the way we see ourselves. Over years, we've listened to other voices who label us. We do things we're ashamed of. We say things we regret. We feed and feast our bodies to satisfy, and we comfort eat to heal a hurt. And then a few months or years down the line, we're disappointed with the way the body looks. And then we get into a downward spiral where we feel even more rubbish about ourselves than we already did. I don't think there is any woman on the planet who is exempt from feeling this way. When I reflect back on my life, I was the most insecure and unsure young woman ever. And that insecurity, the not being sure of my own mind, not being confident to make my own decisions, second guessing everything I did, it led me into some crazy situations that created even more regrets for me. And that produced an even more overwhelming feeling of dislike and discontent for myself. And I believe that's why I'm so absolutely passionate about teaching women today about their true value of who God made them to be. Because God only made one of you. You are unique and you are beautiful to Him. And when you truly make peace with God, you begin to make peace with yourself. And I know I've had to learn how to make peace with myself over years. And one of the ways that I do this is every morning before my feet hit the ground, literally as I'm waking up, I wake up talking to God and I wake up with gratitude. Now, I'm sure many of you are used to having a quiet time with God of a morning or at some point during your day, but this is something I do before even that. I literally wake up and I'm intentionally thankful, because do you know you can train yourself to do that, right? So I often find now that I am waking up and my mind is talking to God about things that I'm thankful for even before my alarm clock goes off, because I've trained myself to do that. And I begin by listing to God the things that I'm thankful for, no matter how big or small. I lie in bed and I'm thankful for my health. And I begin to say to God that I'm thankful for my family. I thank Him for everything. I thank Him for the hair on my head, because I know what it's like to go through treatment and lose that. I thank Him for a strong heartbeat. I thank Him for the blood pumping through the veins in my body. And I thank Him for anything else that comes to my mind. Then, no matter how I feel, I speak to myself about myself, the way that I would speak to someone I love. No matter how rough I feel, no matter how tired I am, and regardless of whether my life is going well or not, sometimes we all have to do as David did when he said to himself, "This is the day that the Lord has made. I will be glad and rejoice in it." David wasn't waiting to see how his day went before he decided if it was good or not. He decided before the day began how he would feel about the day ahead of him. Then I asked the Lord, what is there in me that needs to change today? You know, quite often we don't make the changes we need to because we look at ourselves as a whole. And if I began to look at myself as a whole, I'd just be thinking, oh, well, where do I start? But let me encourage you by saying you start today. And today you work on yourself today. King David, he also wrote in Psalm 139, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offense in me and lead me in the way of everlasting." David didn't just criticize himself. He starts by listing everything he doesn't like about himself. And then he invited the Lord to examine him. He said, "Lord, if there's anything you don't like about the person I've become, then show me and help me to change." And you know that you and I can do the same. We can ask God to show us if there's anything about the way we speak, the thoughts we have, the habits we've developed, the way we eat, the lifestyle we lead. Ask God, is there anything He wants you to change? And then allow yourself permission to change. You know, many people are at war with themselves. They live a lifetime at war with themselves because they're always fighting who they used to be or who they think they ought to be. And I want you to encourage you to make peace with yourself. You don't need to go to war with yourself. Don't hate the past. Look at it and honor that version of yourself for what you survived. You may have lost a bit of dignity along the way, probably lost a few friends, and at times you might have thought you were losing your mind, but you came through what you went through. So don't despise that version of yourself because you survived it and you're still here. So don't hate the woman you were. Respect her for what she endured. But now give yourself permission to outgrow her. Outgrow your old beliefs, outgrow your old expectations, and create new rhythms to support your mind and your soul. Every good relationship needs feeding. It needs nourishing to survive. And the relationship you have with yourself is no different. Pay attention to what restores you versus what drains you, and make sure you put your time and energy into the right place. Be kind to your body. Build rhythms of rest. I find this difficult, but I've come to learn that it's necessary because it heals the body, it recalibrates and repairs the body when you reset. We need rhythms of equality between movement and stillness. And we're going to talk more about that in a couple of weeks. But learn to forgive yourself as well, not just once, but repeatedly. Forgive yourself. Self-forgiveness isn't being in denial. It's actually release, and it's important for the health of your mind that you let go of shame for what you didn't know back then, but you understand now. Because remember, grace applies inwardly as well as outwardly. And finally, remember this, to root your identity in truth and not in performance, because your worth doesn't increase when you do well or do more, and your worth does not decrease when you're struggling. You were chosen and your life is purposeful. You are a one of a kind, so you are not disposable or replaceable. So be intentional with yourself. Don't wait for compliments to come to you. Compliment yourself. Don't wait for edification. Give it to yourself. Don't wait for somebody else to notice you and love you. You take notice of all that God has given you and love yourself in a way that nobody else ever can. I hope you found this conversation helpful today and enjoyed this episode of Braveheart Talks. Please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. And don't forget to secure your tickets for Braveheart 2026 conference by heading over to the link in our bio. Until next time.